Hey everybody, it is Angie here, and today I have with me Sarah from Love and Spreadsheets, and I'm so excited to talk to her today about Trello. I recently discovered Trello, and it has helped me tremendously, but I feel like a super novice, and I feel like this is a tool that everyone could learn about, including myself. And so Sarah's an expert at this. So Sarah, why don't you tell us, maybe introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about yourself, and why you started using Trello.
Hi, everyone. My name is Sarah, and like Angie said, I run Love and Spreadsheets. I'm a systems strategist and an educator for creative entrepreneurs, and I am also actually the co-creator of Trello Like a Boss, which is a course on using Trello. So I started using Trello, I want to say it was like somewhere, I think according to my account, I started in like 2015. But I didn't really use it a lot until I started my business back in 2017. I use it very minimally, partially because if you've ever dabbled in Trello, it can be a little overwhelming when you first get in there because it's a very simple tool, which is great, but also not, because if you don't have a framework for how you're approaching it, it's like a blank page. You sometimes don't even know what to do with it or where to start. And that's what I found myself with. I had a very simple framework for doing certain things with it, but I knew I wasn't using it to its full potential. And so in 2017, shortly after I started my business, I was like, you know what? I know I can be using this better than I am. And so there were a couple of entrepreneurs that I had followed that I knew used Trello as well. So to get a bit of inspiration, I watched some videos that they had done on it. And then I just kind of took it and ran with it. I took some of the ideas that they used and tweaked them to better fit the way that I organize or process information. And just, started using it for pretty much everything, and eventually started getting lots of questions about it. And then my business bestie and I last year took all the information that we have and the ways that we use it and turned it into a course. So
Awesome. Awesome. Yeah. I feel like that was a perfect description of it, where it's just like, it's very simple to use, but you're like, well, what do I do with it? Like, what's the best way to use it? I feel like that's what I'm always wondering. So do you have an example, and you can share your screen or you can wait till later to do that, but example of how you incorporate it into your business? Like, do you use it for project management? What kind of things do you use it for in your business?
All the things.
All right.
I have my operations manual in there. So basically, like, any questions someone would ever have about what Love and Spreadsheets is, who we are, what we do, how we do it, when we do it. If you need a link to schedule a call, like any answer to any question is on a Trello board. I use it to manage my projects with my clients. So for each client that I do a longer term project with, we create a board, and all of our communication happens on that board. I use it for my editorial calendar, for content ideas. I have what's called the All Things Business board. It's just like a catch-all for like other stuff that doesn't really need its own board, but needs more but doesn't fit on another board by itself. I actually have an all things life board, and I do some creative side projects, so I have an all creative things board too. So like I have a couple of those catch-all boards where it's like there's not enough information to make a bunch of extra boards on this one particular thing. So those are like the All Things Business board. It's things like a running to-do list, but then also I use it to track my courses that I'm taking. I use it for tracking some of my regular systems, like my monthly duty day or my quarterly CEO day, like some of those types of things. There's very little that from a task management perspective that does not go into Trello when it comes to my business.
So you would say it's pretty much also your to-do list as well, or is that like a separate thing? Or how do you, I guess that's where I'm always like, I have this to-do list and I have that, and it's like, how do I do these together? Do you do all that on Trello, or do you use some other tools as well?
It's a combination. I'm actually a very analog person, and that's one of the reasons I love Trello, is because it's a digital tool that feels analog to me, at least. And so you can see I have a giant wall calendar behind me. And I also use a paper planner, like
I do too,
religiously. And so the majority, my daily to-do list goes in the paper planner.
Okay.
The paper planner is what I use to time block my days and to set out my daily to-do list. But but what goes in Trello is the longer to-do list. So for example, I have every month, I have certain recurring systems and processes that I do. Like I have my content management process and I have my monthly duty day. On my planner, I will write out monthly duty day or content management. The details of the 1,400 steps or, however many I've fleshed out are in Trello. Yep. And so there I know from looking at the planner, okay, it's monthly duty day. And then I go into Trello and pull up the card for April's monthly duty day and go through the whole checklist. Because taking the time to write out all of that every single month, would take a lot of space, on a planner.
Yes.
But B, it just takes a lot of time. And that's one of the great things about Trello, especially for recurring things like that, where you can easily copy a card, which we'll get to all that in just a little bit.
Well, I love that because that's honestly so similar to how I work. I have to have my daily stuff. I have to see it and write it. But yes, the stuff with all the steps and stuff, it's easier to even quicker to just type them all out and get them all organized and drag them around. Yeah. So that's funny. Exactly. Very similarly. So you kind of touch on this, but you also use it for your personal stuff in very similar ways as well. Yep. Okay. So how about you show us some ways, share your screen and show us what you want to show us.
Absolutely.
The fun part.
I'm going to share my screen here. Okay, so here's Trello. If you aren't familiar with it at all, you can access it wherever. This is the desktop app for Mac, but you can also access it just on Trello.com or on your phone, or on an iPad or any tablet. So it's mobile accessible. It all syncs. So that is one of my favorite things about it, especially for certain things. I use it for my content ideas, and that's one of the reasons I use it for my content ideas is because if I'm out with friends and I randomly get an idea for a blog post, I can pull out my phone, pull out Trello and just type a little card and add it to the thing. And it's not like I have, all these scribbled notes all over the place because I don't know about you, but I get random ideas all over the place. And so having it all in Trello makes it a lot easier to track and organize and keep it all in one spot. Okay, so we'll pick a random board. Actually, we'll go with the operations manual board, just to show you guys a little bit of how Trello works if you're not familiar with it at all. So this is a board, which a board is it's a very broad category of information, like an operations manual or an editorial calendar or an all business, all things business board, your catch-all board. And then information is broken down then into lists and cards. And basically it's sort of think Russian nesting dolls is a good way to think of it. This is the big thing. And then the smaller thing goes in that. And then the smaller thing goes in that. And so these are the lists. And then these individual little pieces are cards. And you can see it's all drag and drop. You can just kind of move it around and rearrange it as you need to. And then the actual cards, you can put all sorts of stuff. So, we'll use my scheduling links one. You can add descriptions. You can go ahead and comment. So that's one of the reasons I love using it for clients. When I do client projects, all of our communication can happen on Trello because we can just comment back and forth. And that way, if we're talking about a specific deliverable or a specific thing that we're working on, all of the communication's in one spot. We don't have to be hunting through an inbox to try to find, well, it was in this email thread, but I think I said something over here and then I sent a separate email over here, and all the communication regarding whatever is in one spot. And you can see you can attach things. So you can attach documents and files. You can even attach within Trello. So you can attach cards to other cards or attach boards to cards, which from an operations perspective can be really helpful if you are if you use a particular board template for a specific type of project, or you use a particular card template for a specific thing. If you have a card fleshing out that process, then you can attach the template card to the card explaining the process. So you can attach things to the cards themselves as well as in the individual comments, and you can do it through your computer, Google Drive, Dropbox, and you can also just do links from the internet. You can also go ahead and add checklists, which is great. Here's an example of my monthly duty day. I have all these checklists for all the things that
Wow.
I
Yeah.
do every single month. And it's really fun to just like be able to, and as you can see, you get a progress bar, like as you are working through, it gives you your percentage. And if you go to the outside of a card, it'll tell you how many things are checked off the list. So you can visually see both in the card and outside the card what your progress is on certain things. And once you have completed all the things on the checklist, it turns green. And then you can also add due dates to things. So if you're tracking tasks or to-dos for like a project, or if you're tracking pieces of content in an editorial calendar, you can assign those due dates and a time, and you can even set reminders to be sent to you. And those will be sent depending on your notification preferences in Trello. So you can set it up so that Trello like notifies you in Trello, which if you can see, there's like a little bell up here. And so this is where you would get any notifications. So if you get tagged in something, or if Trello's reminding you, hey, something's due tomorrow. And then you can also set up, I mean, just like any other platform, you can set up email notifications, push notifications, kind of whatever your preference is for being told, hey, don't forget about this thing. Mm-hmm. And there are even, there's a power up, which we'll get into power ups a little bit later, but basically there's a way that you can even see all those due dates on an actual calendar, not just in a board, basically.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So, and then you can label things. So I don't use a lot of labels on the operations manual. I use them on different boards. And so you can name the labels, different things. You can add different colors. And then if you were to add a label to a card, it pops up out here. And so if you like to color code, if you like to visually organize information in that way, that is super, super helpful. The only downside is that there's only 10 colors. So if you need more than 10 labels, you have to use multiple colors, or, the same color for multiple things.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So that's kind of the basics of cards. You do also have the option to like move them like to a completely different board. I'm involved with a bunch of different boards because a lot of my clients.
Look at those boards. I'm thinking I have like 7, and I'm like, this feels like too many boards, but I'm glad that like, okay, that I'm.
Well, some of it, right. Like you can see some of these down here, like I have templates.
Okay.
Different
gotcha.
projects.
So like you get a new client, you can just choose that.
I can just, because you can copy a board in the same way that you can copy a card. So like you can see you have this option to copy here, and you can change the title of it. You can copy it to whatever board, to whatever list, and even like where on the list it's how high or low it goes. And so you can also watch the card, which means you get notifications about any updates on it. And then archive, which is distinct from delete. You can also delete a card, which completely removes all of the information from Trello. If you archive a card, you can bring it back later if you need to. So for boards, like I said, you can, I'm going to move my face so that we can get some of the stuff over here. You have the option of copying a board. So if you're using it for something like a project, or something you do on a recurring basis, whether it's like a client project or an internal project that you do, you can create board templates where you sort of flesh out all the pieces that you need, and then you copy it and re-put in that information. So like if you maybe are doing a project, an internal project within your business, or working on something, maybe like if you, even in your life, like if you volunteer and there's like you do a big like Christmas thing each year, like also like my family, we would always do there's like a bajillion cousins on my mom's side of the family. There's 28 of us. Yeah. And so we would do names like for Christmas gifts and that kind of stuff. Like you could, if you do something like that every year where like you have a bunch of moving pieces that you need to organize for a family thing that happens every single year or every 6 months, like you could create board templates where all you have to do the next year is copy the board and then input the information for whatever the thing is that you're working with.
So a template board is not necessarily a special type of board. It's just a board that you create that's basically blank. And when you want to do that, you just copy that board and then name it whatever you want and start using it.
Exactly. Yeah. So here, I'll show you one of my template boards.
Okay.
Like, so this is the board template for one of the types of projects that I do with my clients.
Gotcha.
So I have for all of the boards, all of the clients, like here's sort of like the welcome manual basically. And so it's different pieces of, okay, here's the stuff that they need to share with me, or communication guidelines, their pre-work, the client homework, the timeline for a project, and then all the different individual pieces that are going to be part of every single this type of project. So I don't even have to think about, well, did I add the card for this thing or whatever? Basically, all I have to do is customize a couple of things and send it to the client, and it's good to go.
I love that. And I love all your cute backgrounds too. I find like making things cute just makes it so much more enjoyable to work on.
Oh, yes. And so with the backgrounds, you have the option if you're using, so Trello is free. Like a lot of people don't realize that. And you have, unlike a lot of tools where the free plan limits you to a lot of, like, there's certain functionalities or whatever that you can't use. The only thing that Trello limits on the free plan is you can't do custom backgrounds like this. You can still change them, which I'll get to that in a second. You can't do custom ones. And then your file upload limit is limited to, I think it's 10 megabytes. Okay. And then you are limited to the number of power-ups you can have per board, which we'll get to that in just a minute. But with the backgrounds, you can do colors, but again, you're limited to colors. But Trello coordinates with Unsplash, which is a huge stock photo thing. And so if you have the free plan, you can still change the board backgrounds. Mm-hmm. You can only choose the photos from Unsplash. Whereas if you have one of the paid plans, which I use Trello Gold, it's $5 a month. And if you refer people, you actually get it for free. So like I use it. I've never actually paid for it though. And then they have like Trello Business Class and some other things. But if you do that, then you can upload custom photos like I have and use your branding and all of those fun things, or add photos of your kids, or, whatever it is for the board that you need. Okay. So that's an example of a template board. And like I said, you can use Trello for all sorts of things. You can see some of my starred boards up here. I have, which starred boards are basically just like the boards you use the most, so they stay at the top, like you would star an email or star a file, same thought process. So I have my All Things Business board, which, like I said, is it's a catch-all board. I have my to-do list, I have my brain dump, I have monthly and quarterly maintenance things, different collaborations, all my courses, things I'm working on, testimonials, and then these are like archive of like projects and stuff. So basically it's just sort of like all the things that don't need another board all get thrown on here. Yeah. And I do the same thing with life. I have some backlog projects, all sorts of random stuff, church things, house stuff, health stuff, systems, same general deal, all the random stuff that doesn't deserve or need its own board. Mm-hmm. And then I have the operations manual, like I said, which is all the questions about my business can be answered on this board. Yep. Everything from, okay, well, what are the hex codes for the brand colors? And Trello does this fun little thing where it even pulls up the colors.
Oh, that's really cool.
That's a new thing that happened within the last couple of months. And I remember I opened the card one day and I was like, oh, that's fun.
That is super neat. Yes.
This not be a thing. And then, all the different checklists that I have, my affiliate links and my links to all the different types of questionnaires that I have, and my brand copy, and information about okay, here's my services, and all the things. It's all on the one board. And then these are my different client boards. So my active clients for my different two main services, my overhauls and my strategy sessions. And most of these, it's just we go through it goes through a process, whatever the phase is, we go through.
Yep.
And just kind of move them along.
Kind of like that Kanban method.
Exactly. And so Trello is actually built on the Kanban system,
gotcha.
Which, pause, if anyone's not familiar with Kanban, it's a Japanese productivity system based on the thought process that any task is either a to-do, it's you're doing it, or it's done. And and everything kind of moves along that framework. And so that's what the boards and lists and cards are sort of built on. So you can build out a board with that thought process in mind, where it's steps. Each list is a step in the process. So for example, my editorial calendar, I have a list for each step in the process, when it's planned, when it's outlined, drafted, edited, scheduled. And
that's a good, I need that. Yes.
and so I can easily see like where in that process the piece of content is.
So those little like video business blog posts, those are the tags, correct?
These are the labels, that I was talking about. Yeah. So if we go here, I have, and so you can show just the color. Like you can click on this and it'll hide the color or hide the words. So you can, if you want it kind of shrunken down, you can do that. I like to have it fleshed out because then I get more information about if I can't remember what a color is for, then I know what it is over here.
Yeah.
So I use it both to categorize by category. So I write about like a specific number of categories on my blog, and then also to tell me if it's a blog post or an email or a video, like all those things. And so the calendar thing that I mentioned earlier is great for something like this. It's called the Calendar Power Up, which Power Ups are basically, they add additional functionalities to a board. And they're everything from a calendar to custom fields to card repeaters to like direct integration with Slack and some other things. Some boards need them more than others. Sometimes like the boards listing cards does exactly what you need it to do. The two power-ups that I use the most are the calendar one, and then another one called custom fields, which basically allows you to add custom fields to your Trello cards. So I'll show you guys that on another board in a second. But the calendar power-up turns your Trello board into an editorial calendar. And so you can see all the different pieces of content or the due dates for tasks or whatever it is, all on a calendar, and you can drag and drop. So like if I were to move this and go back to the board, the due date has changed now.
Gotcha.
And so it's great for planning content. I found I usually will pull all the pieces of content I want for like a quarter onto the board, give them like a random due date just to get them onto the calendar, and then I like drag and drop and rearrange and go, well, I have like 3 system posts in a row. Maybe we want to like swap this around and, add this in here. And it's great if you wind up having to change your editorial calendar, rather than like I use spreadsheets for a lot of things, hence the name Love and Spreadsheets. But you can't drag and drop things on a spreadsheet, if you change the date of something, you would have to go in and manually shift it over here and shift it over here and this, that, and the other thing. Or if you were writing it down in like a physical planner or a physical editorial calendar, you'd have to scratch things out and, or I guess if you don't use pen, but I use pen for everything, you would have to rearrange that in a much more time or labor intensive way. Whereas with Trello, you can just literally drag and drop it and it changes and it's good to go.
Yeah.
So for content planning and content management, and that's actually how I started using Trello. And that's pretty much all I did with it for the first 2 years that I used it. So the custom fields power up, which is the other one that I use the most, I use actually on my All Things Business board a lot. So we'll use a client board as an example, because that's a better example. Let's go back to the templates. So like on one of my, wrong one. There we go. If I click on one of these cards, you can see I've added some checkboxes. So like I can check when a contract is fully executed, that the invoice has been paid in full, that something's been completed, or like these 2 ones, if I submit something to a client, like say, hey, this is my proposed new process for this, they can review it and approve it in Trello using those little checkboxes. And you can also add dates. So you can do checkboxes, dates, drop downs, numbers, or text. So if you need to add more date information than just a due date, like maybe you need to see the start date and the end date of something, or you want to track someone's birthday or their favorite snack or their love language or their, whatever it is. You can add all this types of information and just kind of select. And that's great when you have the pieces of information that you want to keep consistent in how you're gathering them. So like with a client, maybe if you want to make sure for all of your clients, when their birthday is, what their favorite snack is, if they have any allergies, like the date of your working relationship started, those types of things. If you want to make sure you're gathering that for every client that you work with, you can add the custom fields for it so that those are just added there. And you just have to go in and fill in the information. So,
gotcha. Wow.
Yeah. Yep. Okay. So that's a lot of business stuff. Another from a life perspective, you can see I use Trello to organize my reading, which I actually use a massive spreadsheet to organize my reading too. But I actually started using this board just last year because there were certain things that I just couldn't track in the same way, like in a spreadsheet. And so I found this is a really great way for me to keep track of things I'm currently reading, the books I have unread, my favorite fiction and nonfiction for the year, different reading goals that I have or challenges, or I have some author backlists that I'm reading through. And so as I progress through them, I found a whole list of all their published works, and I was able to create a card. And now as I go through and I read their books, I can just check it off the list.
Yeah.
Or I'm working on a project where I'm reading through all the Pulitzer Prize winners. And so I created a list, and each year when the new one gets decided, I add it to the list. And as I read different winners and past winners, I go ahead and check them off the list. And it's an easy way to keep track of that kind of stuff. Checklists are one of my favorite things about Trello. I clearly use them a lot.
Awesome.
Yeah. I also use it from I use it to track travel. So, I have I back added this information because I didn't start using Trello till 2015. But I have every trip that I've taken since 2012. Wow. Is on the dates, why I did it, if there are any additional notes that needed to be made about it. And once in the last couple of years, I've started using it to actually plan travel. So, so New Orleans, I did a day trip there back in 2017. And when I started researching, I was like, okay, here's things to do, places to eat, so I could just get a general idea of what I wanted to do. My older sister, my younger sister, and my sister-in-law and I went to Alaska on a cruise last year. And we had our itinerary and our total cost, and we were able to attach all of our hotel confirmations and all that kind of stuff. I had my checklist of stuff that needed to get done from the business and personally before I went on the trip. So I was able to track everything for the trip all in this one spot.
That is pretty cool. So it's really if you want it to be, it can be an all-purpose business life management place to keep everything.
Exactly. Yep. And since you can add other people to boards, if you want to use it for family planning, if your husband, or if you have older kids, to have a spot where everyone can track what's going on with each other, or if you need a collaborative grocery list, or whatever it might be, you can do. Literally the possibilities are endless.
Yes. Talk to me about these cute little labels you have, the domestic and international. Are those graphics on those cards? What is that?
They're the same type of labels that are on
the one go over to the left.
Oh, these ones. Oh, yes. Okay, these ones. Yeah, they're card covers. When you attach images to a Trello card, because you can attach files, images, video, whatever you want to. Yep. When you attach images, you have the option of making it a cover.
Gotcha.
So I could hide this if I want to. And I do this on certain boards, I have it here. And then you also may have noticed I had it on, on the books board. I have some of these ones. I use it on my content ideas board.
Gotcha. Just to kind of make it a little more clear
Yeah,
of, yeah.
it just gives it a little bit of pop and color, especially on boards like this, where I maybe have multiple categories on one list.
Yep.
It visually breaks things up a little bit
Yes.
more than just a card would.
Yes.
So you can, you can use them for all sorts of things, depending on the type of board and the type of information you're gathering. And I mean, I make mine in Photoshop. Like I have a template. And so I have the size set already, and I have different layers for each of my colors, and I literally just pop in, type in the thing, save, and done. But you could create it in Canva or, any other tool that you use to create graphics.
Yep.
So,
Oh, I love that. I've never thought about doing that. I love that idea.
yep. And you can also do emojis. Like I don't use the emojis nearly as much as my friend Alexandra, who's the one that I co-created the Trello course with. She uses them for like all the things, like almost more than labels. I use them like sparingly, just to like add a little bit of like additional pizzazz to my mostly at the top of my list. But you can use them all over the place. So
awesome.
yeah.
Wow. Well, I feel like I am certainly not using Trello to its full extent. All of these amazing ways that that it can be used. I mean, truly, you can use it for everything.
Oh yeah, and the thing that I always recommend with people is take time. Like when you first start using Trello, don't feel like you have to start using it for everything all at one time. Like start with a board or two boards and get yourself used to using those things. And then if you find that you're having trouble keeping track of a certain thing or organizing a certain thing, or either because you don't have a system in place for it, or the system you're using right now just isn't working as well, ask yourself, okay, how could I organize this in Trello? Like if I put this into Trello, would it be better? Would it be, would I be able to keep track of it easier? Would fewer things fall through the cracks? And I find sometimes, especially just having some of those like catch-all boards, just so that things are in one place, because especially in the digital age, like, we have notes on our phones, and we have this app over here, and we have scraps of paper, and one of the biggest struggles that I think a lot of people have with organization is that everything's all over the place. And so sometimes just having a place where everything is, even if it's just a brain dump, board where you just, anytime you have an idea about something or a note about something or whatever, like you put it into one spot. Just having that designated place makes organizing and finding things so much easier.
Yes. As I'm looking at this, I have a question, and you don't have to spend, I'm sure you could probably talk about it forever, but you don't have to spend a ton of time on it. Just for my own curiosity, when I am like, when you're time blocking your day, like I look at this and I'm like, oh my gosh, what do I have to do? I've got all these things that I have to do. That's like, honestly, my Trello board has taken a little bit of a back seat, because I look at it and it's like a massive to-do list, and I don't even know where to start with it. So how does it work when you like, okay, because I do the same thing. I time block up pieces of my day. So is it just like, hey, now I know I'm working on client management stuff, so that's when I'm going to this board over here and kind of finding the list? Like, is that how you use it?
Basically, yeah. So I time block my days, and I like category block my days.
Yep.
Like I spend Monday working on my own business. I spend Tuesdays and Wednesdays on client related tasks. I spend Thursdays on like collaborations and calls, discovery calls, like those kinds of things. And then Friday is like my overflow day of the week. So sometimes I'm working, sometimes I'm not. And so like I know, and like even for example with Mondays, like the first Monday of the month is my like admin monthly duty day. The second Monday of the month is content creation. The third Monday of the month is content management. And so like, it's basically that. It's like, I know, and then I'll write it in my planner. Like on a client day, for example, like I do 2-hour time blocks using like the Pomodoro technique, if you're familiar with that at all. It's basically like 25 minutes of focused work, 5 minutes of break.
Okay.
For like basically 2 hours, and then you take about a half-hour break, and then you repeat the same thing. So that's how I time block my days. So I have 2-hour blocks. I have 3 2-hour blocks that I work through each day. plus like a 30-minute startup and a 30-minute shutdown at the beginning and end of the day. And so I'll write in my planner, like the client that I'm working on, or if I'm doing content management, or if I'm doing content creation. And like, if I'm doing content management and that's the thing that's in that time block, then I know that I go to the All Things Business board, and over here I have, which my content management is a little bit behind schedule right now, so you can see by my overdue things. But I'll click on the card and like go through and check off, all the things that I need to do.
Gotcha.
And so, and the same with like, my clients, like if I'm working something for a particular client, like I'll go to their client board, because all of the tasks related to that project are on that board.
Yeah.
And so that's how I sort of combine the two.
That makes a ton of sense. And that's where my challenge is, like, how do I make these things work together? Like my schedule with all this information. So that is super helpful. Helpful. Well, this was amazing and incredibly insightful. And so I'm really excited to share this with really anybody. I think it's definitely shines if you have a business and projects to manage and things like that. But holy heck, if you're managing a home, you can still use it for that reason as well too. So
and you can use it like if you're organizing home projects that you're like, if you're doing a renovation and you're wanting to like gather information and gather gather inspiration, but then also maybe gather information about different contractors or different sourcing places, or, whatever it might be, you can do that kind of stuff. I'm working on building out a board for it to be like my yoga calendar. It's still in process, but you can use it for anything pretty much.
That is incredible. Well, thank you for being here with us today. If people want to find out more about you, connect with you, where can they do that?
So they can do that in a couple places. One is through my business, Love and Spreadsheets, which you can find, the website is loveandspreadsheets.com. I'm also over on Instagram at Love and Spreadsheets. Instagram is like the only social media platform I'm on. I don't do Facebook or Twitter or like any of those other things from a business perspective. So that is one place. The other place, especially if you want more information about Trello, is like I mentioned, my business bestie and I did create a Trello course called Trello Like a Boss, and it goes through all of this and more. And we create a lot of those templates that you saw, those are for the course where we created templates. Because the course, we walk through all of the different types of ways we use it in our business, but we also turned a lot of the boards that we use in our own business into templates. And so I think there's 19 board templates that come with the course. And so that is another, and that's TrelloLikeABoss.com. But we also have a startup guide for Trello called the Essential Trello Startup Guide, I think is the official title of it. And so if you're kind of just like, okay, maybe I'm just hearing about Trello, I want to like get my feet wet a little bit, it goes through a lot of what I talked about in more detail, and includes things like a little bit more about the branding and the color coding, how to format text and take notes in Trello, like some of those kinds of things, a little bit more information about a couple of the power-ups and the integrations that are available. I think there's a whole list of board ideas on there as well.
Is that available on the Trello Like a Boss site?
It is, yes.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. This was amazing. I appreciate it. And I would love to stay in touch.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you guys have questions about anything, feel free to send me a DM on Instagram or send me an email. I am more than happy to answer questions. And
sounds great. Well, thank you. Thanks for being with us. We'll talk to you later.
All right. Bye.